Kauai, Hawaii. Definitely a very magical place to be from. I am not really sure how I ended up as a snowboarder from Hawaii, but here I am.
Who's this?
Elena.
Elena lived in a little dream world. We lived out here in Hyanna. For the years before that, we had been going to Sun Valley, Idaho for 8 years in a row. And we were skiing. And then my other two daughters, twin daughters, said we got to learn how to snowboard. And I thought it was just so hokey. But one day a pro showed up and said, I'm going to give a clinic and you guys are going to learn how to snowboard. And from that day on, we were all snowboarders. I had my fill of surfing. It was getting too crowded. I said, I don't want you to be a surfer. You're going to end up being a pro surfer. I'd rather have you be a pro snowboarder. And they all laughed at me, and that's what she ended up being.
I grew up riding Heavenly. That was kind of my local mountain and where I lived the closest to. My dad's favorite resort was always Kirkwood, so we would do trips out there, and I think to this day that's still my favorite snowboard mountain. There's just so much good terrain, and I think it reminds me of just like the days just shredding with my dad and skipping school, and how much just kind of joy came from that. I was definitely like a very physical kid. Like I had a lot of energy and drive, and it definitely portrayed in everything that I did. And snowboarding was just another element of that. I think I really was drawn to snowboarding because of the culture, because of the friends that I made, because of just like the creativity and the freedom that it gave me. Being able to like get dropped off at the mountain and my mom be like, "Cool, I'll pick you up, you know, at 3, have fun," and just to be able to like play with all of my friends. I think I really, I remember really looking forward to that. And I think the competitive side was just like this, I don't know, innate characteristic that I had to want to win and to want to like, to be able to kind of put that energy into something and also have something to strive for. Like I still am really driven by goals and like stepping stones and like gravitate towards a little bit more structure in my life. And I think I've just always had that.
I first met Elena when I was like 10 years old. She was an amazing local snowboarder. She was on the Heavenly team, and my sisters and I were on the Sierra team. So naturally there's like that little bit of like mountain beef, but like healthy beef. I always really admired her. She was just like this unstoppable little girl.
I was a super competitive child. Like it was just in my core to want to compete and definitely win. Like I was a pretty bad loser as a child. Like I would throw tantrums and stuff if I didn't win contests. So I would say the contest scene really, like I took to it as soon as I started snowboarding. I started doing USASA events at 7, and I would do everything. I would race gates and ride border cross and do the slope styles and ride the half pipes, which at that time were like 12 feet-ish. And I just loved it. It was like my favorite pastime was to compete, and I think that I was a really driven child, so that kind of gave me an outlet and like something to work towards.
She was so good at snowboarding. Like she was like, she was like Billy Anderson. She was so good at turning that you could tell that she was just, even if she didn't have all the tricks that everyone else had at that moment, she was just better at snowboarding. So you knew she was capable of anything she wanted. It was crazy. You could tell how good she was riding, like just by how she turned and how she held her edge in the snow.
My career really took off at a very young age. Went to a junior nationals and then a junior worlds at like 12 and met all of these kids that were my age that were like the best essentially in the world. Everyone from like 18 and under, and met all these kids who were like trying to make it in snowboarding, and really like connected with this group of kids that was like a little bit older than me, but really my same like age group and level of snowboarding, and connected with, you know, a lot of the pros that ended up being my really good friends throughout my career.
You know, I've known Elena probably for over 20 years now, and I'm not quite 100% sure on when I would say the first time I've met her, but I remember going to nationals when I was still living in Ohio and kind of being envious of the kids from North and South Lake Tahoe. I mean, those were like the kids that were always winning everything, but then they also had this like inner competition inside of nationals of North Lake versus South Lake. But those were the kids that you always just watch and I was in awe of, and Elena was one of those people. I mean, we're very close in age, so every nationals I would see her. And then as I went to Stratton Mountain School, I started traveling more and actually getting into the bigger competitions. I mean, Elena's been dominant in snowboarding probably since she really started, and nothing's really changed.